Hi there, this is Mr. Payne. I'll be helping out with some of the I'm doing my student teaching this semester, so I'll be helping out with Miss Level. I guess it's mostly for the online kids because you guys will not have gotten to see me yet. But just want to quickly introduce myself, and we'll be going over some tips to properly write a formal email. So we're going to go through this PowerPoint really quickly, and then there's an assignment on Google Classroom for you guys. And you can access this PowerPoint for some additional information for it. So we'll go ahead and get started. So writing a formal email, I just got some quick tips for you, and hopefully these will help you out when you have to write emails for communication, whether it be in our classroom this year or even when you get to college, and especially when you start your career in whatever job you have. It's important that you understand how to effectively communicate using digital resources like email. So the first thing we're going to talk about is that you need to check your inbox. It's really, really important. Emails a lot of times contain vital information, especially when it comes to information about finances or questions. So you don't want to miss something during that came to you through email. It's really easy to do. All you have to do is log onto your phone. You can download an app for most emails, and you just got to check it once or twice a day, and usually you'll be able to see all the information that you need to see. Next thing is when you actually go to write the email to someone, you're going to want to include a subject line. What the subject line is, it's kind of like a title or a preview of what the message is going to be that you're trying to send. It allows the person receiving it to have an idea and kind of orient their mind toward what do they need to be looking for, or how do they need to answer your question. So with your subject lines, you want to be really specific. That way they know what they're talking about. It's been recommended that you use 6 to 10 words, somewhere in there. And so an example might be if I was sending an email about a government class, you would say question about assignment in government, or if you're missing something, say missing class on this coming Tuesday. It's just really easy and nice for whoever's receiving the email. That way they know what you're trying to ask them ahead of time. That way they don't have to dig all the way down into the email to see what, because they might know the answer to your question just by reading the subject line. So you want to make sure those are clear and concise and straight to the point. All right, so the next part is actually the first part of the written email, and it's called the salutation. So if you guys ever learned how to write a letter, it's kind of like the very beginning of the letter. You can use expressions like dear or hi, hello, to whom it may concern. And you also want to include the person that you're addressing. So Mr., Mrs., Miss, once you get to college, doctor, professor. This is just a formal way to greet somebody. It's very professional and allows you to not just say, hey, I need you to help me with something, but it allows you to have it open up a dialogue with somebody, especially if you're asking someone who's like a teacher or someone who's a little bit higher than you in the academics hierarchy. That way you can start the conversation and they understand that you're being respectful and are serious about asking a question. Examples might be, dear Mr. Smith, or hello, Dr. Bush. The expression to whom it may concern, you would usually use that when you're writing an email to somebody who you don't know who it's going to. So if you were reaching out to an organization and you didn't know like who specifically you're talking to, this would be a good time to use that. Or if you're like writing to a business office when you're applying to schools and you just need to send something to the business office and you're not really sure who it needs to go to, whoever opens that email, when they see that, they'll know, okay, I need to direct it to, based on the email information, who it is that it needs to get to. So the next part is the body of the email, and this is basically just like writing a paper. You're going to use all the conventional writing techniques. So you're going to use proper paragraphs, punctuation, grammar, pretty much like you would write an academic paper. You want to make sure that you're spelling things correctly and you're not using any slang. This isn't a text message. You don't want to use any abbreviations. You're not talking with your friends. You're talking to somebody who you're trying to usually get information from or communicate information to. So you don't want to be using something that they would not understand. So make sure that you're using kind of the words and phrases and writing techniques that are generally accepted as standard writing, and you don't want to like I said, I guess the best way to put it, it's not a text message. So don't use anything that you would text your friends with. Example here, you guys can look at. So I make sure I indent my paragraphs using proper grammar and punctuation. And even though this is a really short email, you can still see that you want to make sure that you're spacing things out correctly. And I'm not using any type of abbreviations or slang or anything like that in there. So next part is the closing of the letter or the email, I should say. And it's just like a letter though. So you're going to use polite phrases like sincerely, thank you, thanks again, best regards, really anything that you may have written in a handwritten letter. The same applies in this situation. It's just a way to let the person who's reading the email know that you appreciate them reading it and you are being respectful and you want to hear back from them. You're not just sending something out without any really thought behind it, but you're being sincere about it. So any of those would be good. Or if you have any others on your mind, like those are probably good too. But you just want to make sure that the person who's reading the email knows that the email is coming to an end. And so this is kind of the best way to do it. The last part of the email is a signature. And what you can do is you can just sign your first and last name, or if you know the person pretty well, you can use just your first name. Another way to do it is to create and save one. So an example of that is the one that I use. So I have my name, the organization that I'm with, which is Bluffton University. And then I also have some information about what it is I do there. So that was adolescent, young adult history education is my major. And then you can put your phone number too. But basically it's just a quick way that we don't have to sign it and fill out all that information again. It lets people know a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why it is that you're reaching out to them. This slide is for if you want to go ahead and do that. They're just some instructions straight off of Gmail's or the Google website of how to create a signature. It's pretty easy. So you can just follow these, the step-by-step process. And I was able to do it in like 5 minutes or less. So I'm sure you guys will be able to do it too. All right, so just a couple more tips about writing emails and really just online communication in general. One thing you want to do is proofread. So if you were to write a paper for this class, you would definitely want to look over and make sure that you're doing things correctly. You want to double check all your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Even ask yourself, just like read it through a couple of times and say, kind of take a step back and say, is what I wrote make sense? Like, is there anything in here that when I read it again, is it confusing, or is what I wrote, could it possibly confuse somebody else? So go ahead and just make sure that all that stuff looks good. If it's really important, maybe have a friend proofread it for you. I do that all the time when I'm reaching out to professors about an issue in class. I'll have somebody else take a look at it, make sure it sounds okay, make sure it sounds like I'm not coming off as abrasive or I'm being insincere about something. It's always good to have, another set of eyes check something out as well as your own eyes checking it again. Last thing is response time. So a lot of people, if it kind of goes back to the first tip of checking your email, you want to make sure that you're seeing emails when people are reaching out to you, especially when it comes to like professors, employers. If you're talking about college stuff or maybe even banking stuff, if somebody involving finances is emailing you, you want to make sure that you get back to them. If they've asked you something or they've sent you some information, they want to hear back from you. They're not just sending you information just for you to take your own time with it. You want to make sure that they know that you're being intentional about it as well. I will say another thing too, though, is that if you're reaching out to someone you don't know, or it's something kind of an important email, take your time with it and be diligent. Don't just rush and put something together. It kind of goes back to proofreading your stuff. Just make sure that you're using all the correct words that you need to use. You're not sounding like you just wrote the email in 10 seconds and didn't even check it. Just make sure that you're checking your email and you're being intentional about everything, and that you don't have to worry about someone thinking that you're not being serious because you don't know how to write an email. But now after you watch this PowerPoint, you should know how to write an email. I included on this slide just a full example. This is actually the last email I just sent to one of my professors. So make sure you have the subject line, and then I have the salutation, and then kind of the introduction. The body uses all of the correct grammar and punctuation and all the other writing techniques. the conclusion, just say thanks again, because I had reached out to my professor about some information, and then my signature is put there too. So here's a list of some of the resources I used to put this PowerPoint together, and you are more than welcome to check them out. They are all have some even more information about writing emails, especially in an academic setting. So be sure to check those out if you have any more questions. I believe you guys have my email and also Miss Level's email. So if you have any more questions about that too, don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to help you. But yeah, so this is kind of the basic gist of it. Just make sure that you are checking your email is the number one thing. Make sure you're you're writing properly, like you would write a paper. And 3 is just proofread. Let's say those are the 3 biggest things I would do. So thanks again for your time. I believe, like I said, the assignment is on Google Classroom for you guys to fill that out. So if you have any questions with that, go ahead and reach out to me or Miss Level. We should be able to help you out with some of the information. So thank you and have a good rest of your day.